Tom Harrison stood at the edge of his family's farm, watching the early morning mist drift across the barren fields. The weight of responsibility pressed down on his shoulders like the heavy woolen jacket he'd inherited from his father. At 28, he never imagined he'd be fighting to save everything his family had built for generations. The old farmhouse creaked behind him, a wooden skeleton of memories and missed payments. His mother, Elizabeth, moved slowly in the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared a simple breakfast of toast and weak tea. Tom knew she was trying to hide their financial struggles, but the truth was impossible to ignore. 3. Generations of Harrisons had worked this land. His grandfather had purchased the farm during difficult times, transforming rocky ground into fertile fields. His father had continued the tradition, teaching Tom every secret of successful farming. But 2 years ago, everything changed when a sudden heart attack took his father, leaving Tom to manage everything alone. The bank notices were getting more frequent, red envelopes that seemed to scream with each arrival. Tom had tried everything. Selling some equipment, taking odd jobs in the nearby town, borrowing money from friends, but agriculture was changing, and small farms like theirs were disappearing faster than crops during a drought. Local farmers in Millbrook had already started whispering. Some suggested Tom should sell the land, move to the city, find a more stable job. But Tom remembered his father's hands, rough, weathered, but always gentle when touching the soil. Those hands had taught him that land was more than just property. It was a living, breathing part of their family's history. Each morning, Tom would wake before sunrise. He'd check the livestock, repair broken fences, and study agricultural magazines searching for new techniques. His mother would watch from the kitchen window, her eyes filled with a mixture of worry and hope. The nearby farms were owned by larger corporations now. Massive machines replaced human labor, and traditional farming methods seemed increasingly obsolete. But Tom believed in something different. He believed in the connection between a farmer and his land, a relationship built on understanding and respect. Money was tight. Some days Tom wasn't sure how they would pay for feed or seeds or the basic necessities. Elizabeth had started selling some of her handmade quilts in the local market, trying to contribute whatever she could. Her quilts told stories, each stitch a memory of their farm's history. Tom's childhood friends had mostly left Millbrook. They'd gone to universities, found jobs in big cities, pursued dreams that seemed far removed from agricultural life. But Tom had chosen a different path. He was committed to preserving not just his family's farm, but the farming tradition that had sustained communities for generations. Winter was particularly harsh that year. Cold winds swept across empty fields, and frost covered the ground like a silent, unforgiving blanket. Tom worked longer hours, his breath visible in the freezing air, determination burning brighter than the cold could extinguish. At night, he would sit with his mother, reviewing accounts, discussing potential strategies. Elizabeth would sometimes share stories about Tom's father, how he had overcome similar challenges, how he believed that patience and hard work would always find a way. The local bank manager had been clear during their last meeting. They needed a plan, a way to show the farm could be profitable. Tom knew he was running out of time. One more missed payment, and they would lose everything. But something inside Tom refused to give up. The land had been in his family for too long. The soil held their memories, their struggles, their hopes. He wouldn't let it go without a fight. As dawn broke, casting golden light across the farm, Tom made a silent promise. To his father, to his mother, to the land itself, he would find a way. Somehow he would keep the Harrison farm alive. Little did he know, his journey of resilience was just beginning. The challenges ahead would test everything he believed in, but they would also reveal a strength he never knew he possessed. The morning Robert Wells arrived in Millbrook was unremarkable. A dusty silver truck rolled into town, carrying a man who looked more like a seasoned traveler than an agricultural consultant. Robert was different from the typical experts Tom had met before. He wasn't just carrying clipboards and theories, but a genuine understanding of farming challenges. Tom first met Robert at the local agricultural supply store. Initially, their conversation was awkward and guarded. Tom expected another city expert who would criticize his traditional methods. But Robert listened differently. He asked questions about the farm's history, about Tom's father, about the specific challenges of their land. During their first walk across the Harrison farm, Robert noticed something most experts missed. He saw potential where others saw only struggling crops. He pointed out subtle details, quoting how certain patches of soil could be revived, how specific crop rotations might improve yield, and how small changes could make significant differences. Emma Peterson, Tom's childhood friend, had recently returned to Millbrook after working in agricultural finance in London. She was struggling with her own challenges, a recent breakup and a sense of professional disappointment. When she heard about Robert's arrival, she became curious about the potential changes happening on the Harrison farm. One evening, over simple dinner at the local pub, Tom, Emma, and Robert began discussing innovative farming strategies. Emma's financial expertise complemented Robert's agricultural knowledge. She understood numbers, risk management, and funding opportunities that could help struggling farms like Tom's. The conversations weren't just technical. They shared stories about farming, about family, about the changing rural landscape. Robert spoke about farms he had helped across the country, sharing both success stories and hard lessons. Tom listened intently, seeing hope where he had previously seen only challenges. Emma started helping Tom review the farm's financial documents. Late nights were spent around the kitchen table with spreadsheets, calculators, and cups of strong tea. She helped him identify potential grants, restructure existing loans, and develop a more sustainable financial strategy. Robert began teaching Tom advanced yet practical farming techniques. They experimented with soil management, crop diversity, and sustainable practices. Tom was a quick learner, combining his inherited traditional knowledge with new, innovative approaches. The local farming community watched with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Small farms rarely received such focused attention. Most expected the Harrison farm to fail, as many had in recent years. But Tom, Emma, and Robert were building something different, a model of resilience and innovation. Slowly, the farm started, showing signs of improvement. Crops looked healthier. The soil seemed more alive. Tom's confidence grew with each successful experiment. His mother, Elizabeth, watched these changes with quiet hope, seeing her son transform before her eyes. Robert wasn't just a consultant, he became a mentor and friend. He understood that farming wasn't just about productivity, but about connection, to the land, to community, to tradition. He saw in Tom the same passion his own father had shown years ago. Emma's involvement brought more than financial expertise. She reconnected with the community she had left behind, rediscovering her own roots. Her professional skills and personal passion began to merge, creating new possibilities for local agriculture. As weeks turned into months, the Harrison farm became a symbol of hope. Other local farmers started asking questions, showing interest in the new methods being implemented. Tom, who had once felt isolated and overwhelmed, now found himself at the center of a potential agricultural transformation. The unexpected connections between Tom, Emma, and Robert were creating something powerful. It wasn't just about saving one farm, but about reimagining what was possible in rural agriculture. They were proving that with knowledge, support, and genuine commitment, struggling farms could not just survive, but thrive. Tom realized that his journey wasn't a solitary battle anymore. He had found allies, friends who believed in his vision. The farm that once seemed destined to fail was now becoming a beacon of hope and innovation. As the sun set over Millbrook, casting long shadows across the reviving fields, Tom felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: genuine optimism. The unexpected connections were changing everything, one seed, one idea at a time. The agricultural conference room buzzed with tension as Tom prepared to present his innovative farming methods. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his simple presentation notes, memories of past failures echoing in his mind. He remembered his father's advice. Believe in yourself, even when no one else does. Robert stood at the back of the room, offering silent support. Emma had helped Tom prepare his presentation for weeks, coaching him through every slide, every potential question. This wasn't just a presentation about farming techniques. It was Tom's chance to prove that small farms could still matter. When Tom began speaking, his initial nervousness gave way to passionate expertise. He shared detailed information about his experimental crop rotation methods, sustainable soil management, and innovative water conservation techniques. The room, initially skeptical, began to listen carefully. The agricultural committee members exchanged surprised glances. Tom wasn't just presenting data, he was telling a story of survival, of hope, of transformation. He spoke about his family's farm, about the challenges facing rural communities, and about the potential for innovative agricultural practices. One committee member, an older gentleman with weathered hands and kind eyes, leaned forward. He recognized something familiar in Tom's presentation, the same passion that had driven farmers for generations, combined with modern understanding and technology. After the presentation, unexpected things happened. The committee approached Tom asking detailed questions. They were impressed not just by his research, but by his genuine commitment to agricultural innovation. What had started as a potential rejection was turning into an opportunity. The committee offered Tom a small grant, not just money, but a chance to continue his research. They saw potential in his methods, a fresh approach that could help other struggling farms. Tom could hardly believe it when the official announcement was made. Backstory. Home Elizabeth watched her son with pride. The worried lines on her face seemed to soften. She remembered her husband's dreams for the farm and now saw those dreams taking a new shape through Tom's determination. News traveled quickly in Millbrook. Other local farmers began to take notice. The farm that everyone had written off was now becoming a source of inspiration. Tom's experimental methods started attracting attention from agricultural universities and local farming cooperatives. Emma helped Tom understand the financial implications of the grant. It wasn't just money, it was validation. It meant they could invest in better equipment, improve their farming techniques, and potentially save the farm that seemed doomed just months earlier. Robert continued to mentor Tom, helping him understand that this was more than just a personal victory. They were developing a model that could help other small farms survive in changing agricultural landscapes. Each successful experiment became a lesson, each challenge an opportunity to learn. The farm itself seemed to respond to the new hope. Crops looked healthier, the soil more vibrant. Tom spent long hours implementing the new techniques, careful and methodical in his approach. He wasn't just farming, he was rebuilding a legacy. Local banks, which had previously been hesitant about the Harrison farm, now showed increased interest. The grant and Tom's innovative approach changed their perception. What once seemed like a risky investment now looked like a potential success story. Tom's mother started sharing stories about the farm's history with renewed enthusiasm. She would sit with Tom in the evenings, talking about how his grandfather and father had faced similar challenges. Each story was a thread connecting past struggles with present hope. The community began to change its perception. The whispers that once suggested Tom should sell the farm were replaced by conversations of potential and possibility. People who had written off small farms were now asking questions, showing genuine interest. As autumn approached, the farm looked different. The fields were alive with promise, the buildings slowly being repaired, the equipment gradually upgraded. Tom stood, one evening watching the sunset, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: true hope. This wasn't just about saving a farm. It was about proving that passion, innovation, and hard work could overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Tom had transformed from a struggling farmer to a potential agricultural innovator. The turning point hadn't just changed the farm. It had changed Tom, his family, and potentially the entire approach to small-scale agriculture in their community. The drought hit Millbrook harder than anyone expected. Fields turned brown, crops withered, and hope began to fade. But Tom Harrison was not about to let his community suffer alone. What started as a personal struggle transformed into a collective mission of survival. Tom called a meeting at the local community center. Farmers from surrounding areas gathered, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Some had known each other for generations, but competition and individual struggles had kept them apart. Tom proposed something radical, a community support network that would share resources, knowledge, and equipment. Initially, farmers were skeptical. Years of competing against each other had created invisible walls. But Tom shared his own story, how collaboration with Robert and Emma had saved his farm. He spoke not with judgment, but with genuine care and understanding. Emma Peterson used her financial expertise to help develop a shared resource system. Local banks became interested when they saw the collaborative approach. She helped farmers understand how working together could reduce individual risks and create collective strength. Robert contributed agricultural knowledge, teaching farmers innovative water conservation techniques. He showed them how to protect their soil, maximize limited resources, and support each other during challenging times. His workshops became a beacon of hope. The first practical test came when the Miller family's irrigation system broke down. Instead of watching them struggle, local farmers brought their equipment, worked together, and repaired the system in a single day. It was a turning point for the community. Younger farmers who had previously considered leaving agriculture started seeing new possibilities. They watched as their parents and older community members rediscovered the power of collective action. Shared knowledge replaced individual competition. The local bank, impressed by their organized approach, offered more flexible loan arrangements. They saw a community transforming itself, taking responsibility, and creating innovative solutions. What was once seen as a risky investment now looked like a promising opportunity. Tom's farm became a training center. Farmers would gather, share experiences, learn new techniques, and support each other. Elizabeth would often prepare meals, creating a warm environment that felt more like a family reunion than a business meeting. Agricultural equipment was now shared. Expensive machinery that no single farmer could afford became a community resource. Farmers would coordinate schedules, helping each other during critical farming periods. Trust replaced previous suspicions. Young people who had left Millbrook started returning. They saw potential in this new agricultural model, one based on community, innovation, and mutual support. Some brought new skills from universities, adding fresh perspectives to traditional farming practices. The local school became involved, creating agricultural education programs. Students learned about sustainable farming, community collaboration, and the importance of local agriculture. Tom and his team would often give guest lectures, sharing their experiences. Water management became a community project. Farmers developed shared irrigation systems, collected rainwater, and implemented water-saving techniques. What seemed impossible individually became achievable collectively. Emma helped develop a community financial fund. Farmers contributed small amounts, creating a safety net for those facing unexpected challenges. It wasn't just about money, but about creating a support system that could weather any storm. Robert continued mentoring, helping farmers understand that agriculture was evolving. Technology, collaboration, and sustainable practices were becoming more important than traditional competitive models. He helped them see opportunities where they previously saw only challenges. As weeks turned into months, Millbrook transformed. The community that was once divided now stood united. Farms that were struggling began to recover. Hope replaced desperation, and collective action replaced individual survival strategies. Tom watched these changes with quiet pride. The farm his father had worked so hard to maintain was now part of something much larger. It wasn't just about saving one farm anymore. It was about preserving an entire community's way of life. The drought had become a catalyst for change. What could have destroyed them had instead made them stronger, more connected, more resilient. Millbrook was no longer just a collection of individual farms. It had become a true community. As evening fell, farmers would gather, sharing stories, discussing challenges, and planning for the future. The sense of isolation that had defined rural life for so long was disappearing, replaced by something far more powerful: genuine human connection. 3 years had passed since Tom Harrison first feared losing his family farm. Now, standing in the same fields that once seemed destined to fail, he saw a completely different landscape, both physical and metaphorical. Emma, now his wife, walked beside him, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. Their little farmhouse, once worn and tired, now stood proudly, freshly painted, surrounded by thriving crops and new life. The farm was more than just surviving. It was flourishing. The community support network they had created had transformed Millbrook. What started as a desperate attempt to save individual farms had become a model of agricultural innovation. Farmers, who once competed, now worked together, sharing resources, knowledge, and hope. Tom's experimental farming techniques had caught the attention of agricultural universities. Researchers would visit regularly, studying the sustainable methods he had developed. His small farm had become a living laboratory of agricultural possibility. Elizabeth, now a proud grandmother-to-be, watched her son with tears of joy. She remembered the dark days when they thought they might lose everything. Now the farm was not just preserved, but had become a beacon of hope for rural communities. Robert, who had been instrumental in their transformation, continued to mentor young farmers. He often told the story of the Harrison farm, a testament to what could be achieved through determination, innovation, and community support. The local bank that had once threatened foreclosure now held the Harrison farm as a showcase example of successful agricultural transformation. Tom had not just saved his family's legacy, he had reimagined what was possible for small farms. Emma's financial expertise had been crucial. She had helped develop a sustainable business model that balanced traditional farming with modern financial strategies. Their approach was now being studied by agricultural economists across the region. Their first child would be born into a legacy of resilience. Tom and Emma talked about the future, not with fear, but with excitement. They were creating something that would extend far beyond their own farm, a new way of thinking about agriculture and community. The community support network continued to grow. Young farmers who had previously considered leaving agriculture now saw opportunity. They attended workshops, learned from experienced farmers, and brought new technologies and ideas. Millbrook had become more than just a collection of farms. It was a living example of what could happen when people worked together, shared knowledge, and supported each other through challenging times. Tom's experimental crop rotation methods had increased farm productivity across the region. Other communities began studying their approach, sending representatives to learn from Millbrook's success. Elizabeth's handmade quilts, once sold to help make ends meet, were now celebrated as artworks. They told the story of their family's journey, each stitch a memory of struggle, hope, and ultimate triumph. The farm celebrated not just agricultural success, but the power of human connection. Seasonal gatherings brought the community together, sharing meals, stories, and dreams for the future. Technology played a role, but it hadn't replaced human connection. Instead, it supported the community's efforts, helping farmers share information, track crop health, and support each other more effectively. Tom reflected on his journey. He had learned that success wasn't about fighting alone, but about building connections. His father's lessons about hard work and respect for the land had combined with new approaches to create something extraordinary. As sunset painted the fields in golden light, Tom, Emma, and Elizabeth stood together. The farm that had once seemed destined to fail was now a symbol of hope, resilience, and community strength. Their story was more than just about saving a farm. It was about proving that with determination, innovation, and genuine human connection, any challenge could be overcome. The baby kicked inside Emma's belly, a promise of new beginnings, of continued hope, of a future filled with possibility. The Harrison farm would continue, not just as a piece of land, but as a living testament to the power of human spirit. Millbrook had transformed, and it all started with one farmer's refusal to give up.